Twice in a lifetime. The thing about WWE and dream matches, especially the good ones, is that they very rarely happen just once. Rock and Cena returned for a disappointing rematch. Andre versus Hogan happened more than once. So did Hart versus Austin. Rock fought Hogan twice. Austin and Rock had a fucking trilogy. It makes sense, after all, goddamn money, but there's something a lot neater about a dream encounter that only happens once. Now, there are loads of obvious ones we could have filled this list out with, like Brock, Punk, Michaels, Hogan, Sting, Triple H, but you know about those. What about the obscure dream matches that have been tucked away into history and never repeated? Fun fact, not one of these matches took place on pay-per-view. They gave them all away on free TV. I'm Plumpy from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 WWE dream matches that only happened once. Number 10, Batista versus Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle tended to have memorable feuds with every bastard he came across. Brock Lesnar, Steve Austin, Chris Benoit, The Rock, Triple H, knocked out numerous belters with each man. However, a future Hall of Famer that he wrestled a mere one time, the Animal Batista. And this wasn't one of those before he was famous jobs. This was in 2005 while Batista was World Heavyweight Champion. It was for the goddamn belt, and it lasted 2 minutes before ending on a DQ. Lovely stuff. Triple H and Ric Flair ran in to cause the disqualification, so Eric Bischoff did his best Teddy Long and made an impromptu tag team match. Player Angle and Trips versus Batista and Shawn Michaels. Kurt was gone from the company the next year, with Angle versus Batista never getting a second chance. Number 9, The Rock versus Eddie Guerrero. With Eddie's passing, he left a lot of dream matches unrealized in WWE. Eddie versus Michaels, Eddie versus Punk, maybe even Eddie versus Daniel Bryan somewhere down the line. But at least we got Eddie Guerrero versus The Rock. Back in 2002, one day removed from Rock winning the Undisputed Championship at Vengeance 2002, he took to Raw to celebrate when La Rocca was interrupted by Latino Heat, who was cross at him because his daughters had a picture of The Rock on their wall. That's dynamite. This led to Rock versus Guerrero for the first and only time in the main event, which was obviously good and obviously won by The Rock. Number 8, Brock Lesnar versus Vince McMahon. Do not tell me you don't want to see Vince versus Brock. I won't believe your bad lies. On an episode of SmackDown in August 2003, Big Veiny Vincent went one-on-one with Brock Lesnar in a fucking steel cage. Also, Kurt Angle was the guest referee. Wrestling is so silly all of the time. So down came Vince looking ridiculous as he does. Out came Brock, who pretended to faint, and then oh whoopsie, it was a trap. Vince and Brock were in cahoots, and then Brock kicked the crap out of Kurt. Ha 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 ha. Fun fact, the next SmackDown a week later was home to another once-in-a-lifetime dream match in the form of Stephanie McMahon going one-on-one with A-Train. That's so hot I'm getting a suntan just talking about it. Number 7, Bret Hart versus Mick Foley. Bret Hart versus Mankind, to be exact. Two of the biggest grandpa legends of the business, one a master of hardcore, the other a master technician. Considering that they were in the same company for 2 years, it's surprising that the two Hall of Famers only clashed one time on an episode of Shotgun Saturday Night, WWE's attempt to mimic the edginess of ECW. They fought in tag matches, sure, but Mrs. Hart's baby boy and the excellence of hitting you with a fucking bin went at it only once, with Bret Hart winning by DQ, so the window's wide open for a really slow rematch. Number 6, Rey Mysterio versus Rob Van Dam. Again, these two were in the same company for donkey's years. How have the two biggest aerial babyfaces of their generation only wrestled once? Well, I guess they're both faces, but yeah, it's fucking mad. And this is in any promotion. They didn't wrestle each other in ECW either. It was on a TV special called WWE versus ECW Head-to-Head, a sort of mini invasion thing with the locker rooms watching and going yay or boo whenever their dudes wrestled. And main evented by John Cena versus Sabu. The opening match, former tag team partners Rey Mysterio versus Ronald Van Donald for the first and only time ever, and it was good. Number 5, Hulk Hogan versus Brock Lesnar on SmackDown. This match happened on fucking SmackDown. Sure, it was in 2002 when Brock wasn't the UFC headlining ultra star that he is now, but just that match, Hogan versus Lesnar on SmackDown for 8 minutes. It was a match for Lesnar's number one contender's spot against The Rock at SummerSlam, and WWE totally trolled the fans into thinking they were getting Rock Hogan too, but then Brock absolutely battered him, crushing his balls against the ring post, kicking out of the atomic leg drop, and then bear hugging the man to death. He busted him open with a steel chair and rubbed the blood in his chest, because he's Brock and he will strength you. Number 4, Steve Austin versus Eddie Guerrero. Before Austin left the company in 2002, creative were positioning him for a feud against Eddie Guerrero, and god damn it, it would have been wonderful. Austin famously took his ball and went home, and we never got the feud, but we did get the match. Well, sort of. We got a match on SmackDown in 2000, which began with Austin kicking the crap out of the Radicals whilst wearing a chef's hat. Look at that. And then beating the ever-loving piss out of Guerrero. Eddie got some offense in thanks to a steel chair to the knee, but it was mostly Austin dropping Eddie with a stunner after 3 minutes. And that was the last time they fought one-on-one. Number 3, Shawn Michaels versus Goldberg. Giant matchup, 2003, HBK versus Goldberg for the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw. TV was good back then. In 1998, Goldberg won the WCW Championship at the Georgia Dome, and Shawn Michaels main evented WrestleMania. 5 years later, the two would meet in the same ring just one time. The match was pretty damn hype, but unfortunately ended in a no contest when young Batista crashed the finish, taking out Goldberg, collecting a $100K bounty that Triple H had put on him, and joining Evolution. Despite having unfinished business, that would be the final time that HBK and Goldberg faced off in a WWE ring, or any ring for that matter. Number 2, Steve Austin versus Ric Flair. The Rattlesnake versus the Ricklesnake. That's excellent. The biggest draw of the NWA versus the biggest draw of the WWE. Now, this isn't number 1 because the two men did, to be fair, have a few matches in WCW, but in WWE, when Austin had become the biggest son of a bitch in wrestling, it only happened one time on Raw in 2002. The megastars became embroiled in a feud. We saw Ric Flair accidentally screwing Austin out of an undisputed title shot before turning heel and benching Stone Cold. In order to win his spot on the roster back, Austin had to beat Flair one-on-one, which he did in a great 12-minute match. And number 1, The Rock versus Bret Hart. The excellence of execution versus the people's champ. The best talker in wrestling history versus the best worker in wrestling history. The week after WrestleMania 13, after turning heel on Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, Hart took on the one, the only, Rocky Maivia, who was going through his bollocks babyface run at the time. In the main event on Raw, fighting for the Intercontinental title. The two went for 10 minutes before Hart did his evil figure 4 on the ring post thing and refused to break, with the only match between two of the biggest stars of all time ending via disqualification. Because apparently most of the matches on this list did. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Plumpy from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.
It's time, once again, for everybody to buy a magazine, please. Yes, that's right, it's issue 5 of our wonderful magazine called Wrestling, and this one is an absolute belter. As you can see from the front cover, it features a massive career retrospective of the Olympic hero, Kurt Angle. Not only that, but it's got a how WWE should have booked the entire WrestleMania 32 card, written by this 6-foot streak of charisma. The bulk of the magazine is this huge top 100 greatest WrestleMania moments of all time list. Not just that, but you've got Shawn Michaels' crimes against wrestling. You've got the top 10 greatest wrestling managers of all time. You've got columns from Jim Cornette, Tom Pritchard, Shane Douglas, and an interview with the WCPW World Champion, Drew Galloway. Issue 5 of Wrestling will be released on April 10th. You can pre-order it now at shop.whatculture.com. Oh, and about our shop, we're currently in the process of moving all of our merch to a new premises. So shipping stuff like t-shirts, that may take a little bit longer. It doesn't apply to the magazines. Once you order a magazine, we will ship it straight away. But for any other items on our shop.whatculture.com, there might be a little bit of a delay for the next few weeks. But don't let that distract you from buying Wrestling. Buy the magazine. Buy it. Buy the magazine.